Australia has always been a nation of settlers, but not all of them arrived from Britain. For one Genealogical Society of Victoria member, the search for their Australian roots led back to Frankfurt am Main, a military family, and a young woman named Susette who made the long voyage to colonial Australia in 1851. The answer to how she got here turned out to involve a leased ship, a famous explorer, and a trail of clues hidden in passenger lists, court documents, and old newspapers. The Rumpff family had already been researched back to 1420 in the German town of Butzbach. But the Australian connection was missing. The focus fell on Susette Elizabeth Rumpff, born in 1829, daughter of Johann Ludwig Andreas Rumpff, a military captain in post-Napoleonic Frankfurt. Johann and his wife Eva had 14 children, and at least 5 eventually left Germany. 3 made the extraordinary journey to Australia. Susette was the first. Tracking Susette down required patience and a willingness to account for the creative spelling of early colonial reporters and typesetters. A search of digitized newspapers turned up a Miss Rumpff, arriving in Launceston on March 10, 1851, aboard the ship Hannah. A court document from the Frankfurt City Archives, drawn up after her father's death in 1855, confirmed she had been in Australia for 3 years and was expected home shortly. Then a shipping notice from Melbourne in September 1855 listed a Mrs. Rumpff and 2 children departing on the Kent. The critical link between arrival and departure, a name that appeared in both notices, Gardner. William Atkinson Gardner was a wealthy Mancunian who had leased the entire 480-ton Hannah to travel to Van Diemen's Land to manage family property. He was also a Germanophile. In 1848 he had visited Frankfurt, where he befriended the artist and naturalist Ludwig Becker, later famous as the naturalist on the ill-fated Burke and Wills expedition. Becker travelled to Australia on the Hannah alongside Gardner. And so, it seems, did Susette. The 2 families are believed to have been socially connected in Frankfurt, and it was most likely Becker who recommended Susette to Gardner as governess to his 2 young daughters. To be entrusted with that role at just 21, Susette must have had a remarkable education. Before we continue with this story, we just want to share something special. Ludwig Becker was not only a naturalist and explorer, he was a gifted artist. These drawings and paintings were made in the field during 1860 and 1861 on the Burke and Wills expedition, by a man simultaneously cataloguing nature, surviving hardship, and recording a world that few Europeans had ever seen. Becker would not survive the expedition. These works are his legacy. What you see here is just a small sample, sourced from the collection of the State Library of Victoria. And now, back to our story. Susette travelled with the Gardner family between Launceston, Melbourne and Sydney, attending social events and holding a prominent place in the household. When Gardner died suddenly in June 1855, his widow resolved to return to England. Susette joined her, departing Melbourne on the Kent during the height of Victoria's gold rush. A ship whose hold carried over 4,000 kilograms of gold. She arrived in London in November 1855, having spent 4 years in Australia at a time when most regarded the voyage as a one-way trip. Susette's story also helped unlock the arrivals of her brothers. Karl Rumpff reached Launceston in February 1855 aboard the Fingal, his naturalization papers confirming what the Frankfurt court document had already hinted. Justus Rumpff followed, arriving in Melbourne in January 1856. Both brothers settled in Launceston initially, almost certainly guided by Susette's experience. Karl eventually made his way to Gippsland, Victoria, where the family line continues today. Karl's descendants filled this photograph taken at Seaton, a long way from Frankfurt, and a very long way from the young woman who first made that journey possible. Stories like this one are exactly why the Genealogical Society of Victoria's International Settlers Group, ISG, exists. If your family roots lie outside Britain, whether in Germany, Scandinavia, Southern Europe or beyond, the ISG can help. They assist members with research both in Australia and overseas, publish a quarterly newsletter with articles and resources, and can guide you to records held in the library that you might never have found on your own. You can find out more, including details of library research days, on the What's On page found on our website. Your international family story is waiting to be told.